Hey there, and welcome to episode 45 of the Unapologetic Mompreneur podcast. In this episode, I am chatting with the lovely Annika Carroll all about how to sleep like a boss so that you can thrive both as a mum and as the boss of your business. The mompreneur behind Sleep Like a Boss, Annika is on a mission to empower women to thrive in both their personal and professional lives. Drawing from her expertise as a sleep and health coach and her own struggles with burnout and insomnia, she helps women to fix their gut, their hormones, and their well-being so that they can achieve great sleep, have more energy, avoid burnout, and as a result, experience sustainable success. Join us as we talk all about how the quality of our sleep can directly impact our success, the most common sleep challenges for mompreneurs, Annika's best tips and strategies for getting a good night's sleep, and boosting those energy levels and how to balance all things biz life, home life, and mum life whilst prioritizing your own sleep and well-being. Ready to discover how to sleep like a boss so that you can thrive both at home and in your business? Let's dive in. Welcome to the Unapologetic Mompreneur, the podcast for mums with an online business who are ready to take back their time, home, business, and self so they can restore the balance and thrive, both at home and at work, without feeling like they have to choose between the two. I'm your host, Sarah Dew, life and biz coach for mompreneurs. I'm also a mum, stepmom, wife, introvert, breast cancer survivor, and your mentor for making a change for the better. I've learned how to go from surviving to thriving and unapologetically create a business I love and the life I want for me and my family without worrying about what other people think. And now I'm here to help you do the same. Because being an unapologetic mompreneur doesn't mean that we're selfish or that we don't care about others. It simply means that we are not afraid to show up as our true, authentic selves, to step into our purpose, do what we know is right for ourselves and the ones we love, and take the steps we need to take to make our dream life and business a reality. Join me each week where I'll be sharing all of my best tips and strategies, plus the occasional dose of tough but gentle love to help you feel empowered, motivated, and confident to take action so that you can become the mum, wife, biz owner, and woman you know you are meant and deserve to be. So, are you ready to unapologetically create a business and life you love? Let's do this. Hey, Annika, welcome to the Unapologetic Mompreneur podcast.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. And, we did an interview for your podcast a few weeks back, and it's great to do that and just return the favor, have you on my podcast, and doing podcast swaps are my absolute favorite thing. So I'm really looking forward to what we're going to be talking about today and diving in all about the sleeping like a boss. So if people that are watching and listening haven't met you before, do you want to just share a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, and the journey that's got you to where you are right now?
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah, I'm Annika Carroll. I'm actually an international business major. That's what I went to university for. Worked in corporate human resources for 15 years, burnt myself out really badly, like really, really badly, and had to kind of get back to work a little in that, but it didn't really work out for me. And so I eventually decided to switch careers. And I am now a sleep and health coach for women. So I work with women who either can't fall asleep, can't stay asleep, or sleep and wake up in the morning and are so brutally exhausted. And I help them with their gut health, their hormones, their minerals and vitamins, their mindset around sleep, stress management, everything we need to make the body be able to just feel safe and fall asleep and get good rest and good energy. Because like when I was burned out, I wasn't sleeping, which was something I didn't understand because I was exhausted and I was literally on the couch and I could not move and I was having panic attacks and like the whole thing. And I still couldn't sleep. Like I would fall asleep from exhaustion and I would wake up every night between 1 and 4 for months on end. And I was starting to freak out because I knew this was going to be dreadful for the next day. And I was just starting to panic. It's like, is this going to be another bad night? Am I going to feel horrible again tomorrow? When is this ever going to end? And it becomes this kind of vicious cycle that you can't really often break. And I just didn't understand it, why somebody who's burnt out and needs restoration can't sleep. And then that's kind of how I got into that whole functional health and sleep and nutrition field.
Amazing. And just that burnout in just the exhaustion and then not being able to sleep and being in that cycle, that is just, it's so tough. And as someone who has suffered in the past and still do sometimes with insomnia, I know what it's like, that you just wake up and you wake up in the middle of the night and you know that that's it. You're just not going to get back to sleep again. And I think it's incredible that you've taken your journey and going through that and then actually applying what you've learned to get yourself out of that to then help other people, because there's so many of us that suffer with that. And sleep is key. We have to have that sleep. We can't function if we don't have sleep, and the longer it goes, the more exhausted, the more burnt out we get, and trying to juggle all of the things. And it's hard when you have a day job and a 9 to 5, but when you're juggling that with being a mom and doing all the things around the house, and then switching from working full time to starting your own business and finding the time and energy to get things up off of the ground and running a business as well, it can be so tough. So how would you say that the quality of sleep directly impacts mompreneur success, and particularly in preventing burnout and boosting productivity?
Yeah, it's actually interesting because with sleep, we always think like, oh, I just have to, I need my sleep to recover and then I'm good to go and I have tons of energy and I just run and I can do all the things. Like you said, I'm the mom, I'm running the company. Not just am I running a company, I'm a whatever, everything from finance to HR to marketing. Yes, that is true. And because if we sleep just 5 to 6 hours a night, and there's studies that show this, our productivity is up to 30% lower than people who sleep 7 to 8 hours. And that is significant. Like 30%, let's say you work 20, like do the math, right? We're working 20 days out of a month and I'm taking the weekends out. Like 30% of that, that's an entire work week that you're inefficient, that you're losing because you're not sleeping, because we are slower. We're not as accurate. That's some of the way the productivity comes in, right? But the other thing that people often underestimate with sleep is sleep consolidates memory. So we're learning new things also as mompreneurs, like I'm learning new stuff, even if it's the tech stuff that I don't like, right? But it's like I constantly have to dive into new things, new trends. Oh, this is changing. I got to do that. It's a lot different from my corporate job where kind of after 2, 3 years, you kind of knew how it went and you grew like with the role, but there was processes to follow and it was not as independent and not as dependent on me only. So I think that's really important, this consolidating memory, learning new things, being able to apply that the next day. And the other thing is creativity. Like, I don't know about you, but I would sometimes, and I notice it too, if I'm rushed during my day already, and I'm sit down, it's like, okay, now let's create a new lead magnet. It's like, oh my God, my brain's just fried and it's empty and it's not coming up. And that is also what happens with sleep. We need space, like mental capacity to be able to be creative. And that could be lead mag, social media posts, whatever you need to do, right? And with that, sleep just helps so much with that. If you sleep, you create that mental capacity because your brain gets cleared out. And then you have that freedom to, it's really freedom to think and not just operate and run. And that's what happens eventually, right? Because if we do that and we don't sleep well, we get stressed even more. And then we're like, oh my God, I still have to do this. Then that anxiety kicks in, that I haven't done enough today. And then that really actually sabotages your sleep immediately, because you go to bed with this to-do list in your head and you're like, oh my God, I've done this, I haven't done that, still need to write that funnel. Right?
Yes.
That welcome sequence isn't done. Oh my God, did I check this? Have I done everything for the kids? They need to go swimming tomorrow. Is everything packed? Like, then it's just all over the place. And that is really, I see so often, it's a recipe for burnout, because it's like you said, we do so much, and especially when we start up, right? There's just so much to do, to learn, to figure out. And if we just don't give ourselves that recovery, then it's just Yeah, it's not going to go so well.
No, oh, it's amazing. It's just really shocking just the effect of that lack of sleep has on us, isn't it? It's incredible. And that 30% less of productivity, that's a huge amount. Like you say, if you add that up over the days of the week and the month, that if we're not giving ourselves time to rest and recharge and even wind down before bed, that's just going to end up with that cycle where you're just pushing and pushing all the time, but just getting more and more burnt out. It's just, that is just incredible that it has so much of an effect on us. And I'd never really, until like you saying this before, and I know we discussed it briefly when we were doing your podcast, of just having that moment where you're just, that creativity goes and you're constantly trying to work and do all of the things, but you've then got to, to run a bit. And a lot of us with what we're doing with our businesses is it's something because we are creative about doing something, whatever it might be, and to lose that creative spark. And then you're just sat at your desk and you've got that blank white screen, your mind is empty, you can't think what you need to do. And until we had that conversation, and like you're saying now, I had never actually associated and attached that to the fact that it was a lack of sleep. And once I started working harder at getting more sleep, it's just like, you're absolutely right, that creative spark isn't just maybe a case of you've lost a bit of inspiration or you're struggling to think of new ideas, but actually it could just be down to the fact that you are not getting that sleep and that your mind just isn't getting that time to rest and recharge.
Yes, and it's definitely a sleep thing, I think, but it also is, I think, is if we sometimes take the time, and that actually positively affects your sleep too, if we take time during the day for ourselves, and we talked about your Friday afternoon
Yeah.
on my episode, right? That we give ourselves permission to, and often women say, I'm in a coaching program right now, and they call it the CEO hour. And I have a CEO hour on my calendar, right? But I'm still working on the business. But for me, it's been this don't, like, actually do something completely different, right? Like,
Mhm.
go to the library, go for a walk, go to the yoga class, do whatever you want. And I'm just like, oh my God, but that takes even more time away of I'm
Mhm.
part-time mompreneur being. No, it doesn't, because it gives you that mental space, and it gives you that creativity comes back. Like when you come out of those me time sessions, whatever you want to call it, there is just more. The blank space can be filled very quickly often because you're like, oh my God, it's so obvious. This is what I want to do, because I actually didn't think about it all the time. And that, just doing that and starting to process things during the day and starting to like give you that space will also positively even affect your sleep.
That is so true. Just those moments to step away. And I think when we're trying to push, push, push all the time and we feel like we've lost that creative spark, it's tempted to want to keep pushing to try and get the answers and find it. And you know it's there somewhere, so you keep going. But then, like you say, you've got that list of all of the other things that you need to do. The kids need to go swimming tomorrow and all of the other stuff that you just don't, you just think you have to keep going when and not give yourself that permission to stop and rest, because it's kind of like, well, I don't have time to rest right now. I've got to do this, I've got to do that. But actually, like you say, we have to do that. And it's in those moments of stepping away that the clarity does come and that rest comes, and that brain, you're giving your brain chance to rest and just have that break. And you mentioned my Friday afternoons. It took me such a long time to bring that into my working week and into my life. But now I do it. And occasionally, I'm human, I slip up and I don't, or there's something I particularly want to finish, so I'll keep doing, I'll keep going. But 9 times out of 10, I do try and make sure that I have those Friday afternoons off for myself. And it gives me something to look forward to at the end of the working week when I have worked hard as my little reward. But it's also that time for me to rest and recharge. And it may be going to the library or hanging out in my favorite bookstore or going for a walk.
Yeah.
But guaranteed, if there's something that I have been struggling with during the week that I haven't been able to resolve or answer, that's when I get the clarity. That's when I
Mhm.
get the moment. And that's when my creativity comes back. It's that giving ourselves that permission to take that time to rest and recharge, and actually doing it is so powerful. So moving on to the most common sleep challenges for mompreneurs. What are the most common things that you see come up with your clients when they're struggling and just trying to get to sleep, or staying asleep? What are the most common sleep challenges that they face?
I think what actually seeing most is inability to stay asleep. Like I would say most of my women wake up between 1 and 3-ish, and then if they're lucky, they'll fall back asleep by 4:30, but then the alarm goes like not that shortly thereafter. Or they're like, it's Like if it's 3:30, then like that's it. Like I'm done for that was that. There are a few who also struggle to fall asleep. But I would say the majority has a problem with staying asleep.
I can totally relate to that. That's definitely my one, is actually staying asleep, because quite often I can go to sleep to start with, but then I wake up during the night and then that's it. And then I look at my watch and my tracker thing, and I'm like, yep, that's it. I'm awake. It's that time again. Here we go. And I've instantly got that mindset going of, well, I'm not going to get back to sleep now. And I don't know whether it's, I don't know, maybe you found this with yourself or with some of your clients, that as mums, and you're doing those night feeds, whether that stays with you no matter how old they get. Because for me, the time I wake up at like 2:35, literally most nights, that is the time that I would do that late night, the midnight feed with my boy. He's 13 now, but I still wake up at that time, and no matter how hard I try, I can't shift that. So I'm kind of trying to like get used to being nice to myself of like, there it is. But instead of putting that pressure that I'm not going to get back to sleep, I'll put on a sleep meditation or something to try and help me get back to sleep. So I totally resonate with that. Do you think maybe that's like one of the reasons why?
Sometimes, yes. I see it sometimes that women are like, I'm still like on high alert, even on high alert. It's like the kid is coughing and we're like, oh no, we're sitting up in bed and that. And yes, I think there is some sort of programming in us that does that. And that's something we have to unlearn. Because there comes a point for most parents, not for all, but for most parents, where you don't need to do that anymore. And then we have to kind of really start to let go of that. Or when it happens, if I may quote you on one thing that I would
go.
The one thing, and I know everybody does it, but it's the killer, is checking the time. Because in that moment, like you're kind of like, yes, you're awake, but you're kind of like your brain's not fully kicked into gear, which we don't want anyhow at 2:35 in the morning. So the minute you check your time, what happens is you're going to start doing math. So you're like, oh, it's 2:35. My alarm goes off at 6. So I might do it 7 hours ago. Well, 3.5. My math is not great this morning. So I have a little bit of time to go. Or like, oh yeah, it's this story again, right? Then we have this, we're activating the brain, and then that shoots up cortisol, and then your melatonin that's supposed to help you with sleep is like, oh, thank you for just pushing my stress hormone. Now I can't. And then it takes an hour, hour and a half, because that's how long the body normally needs to break down that cortisol. And then we can hopefully fall back asleep, but it takes that time. So rather, like, don't check the time. It doesn't matter whether it's 2:35 or 3:35 or 1. It really doesn't matter. You have a nice, hopefully nice, cozy, warm bed where you can rest, where you can just like try and tuck yourself in, turn over, and just even think about I can just rest. That's fine. I'm good. This is not the end of the world tomorrow. I'm literally not gonna die. Yes. Am I gonna be tired? And is that annoying? Yes. But we don't need to stress the body with our thoughts, because that's just self-sabotaging behavior that will not get you to sleep. Sleep doesn't work that way. As soon as we start thinking about it, it's not going to happen.
That's so true. That is such a great tip. So maybe from now on, I should just not have my watch on during the night, because I get completely obsessed with like how much deep sleep and how much light sleep I get and everything. But I do exactly that. You're so right that I look at what the time is, and then I start doing the math and I start working out how many hours it is. And I know, because my husband's a snorer, so he will snore, and they're like, when he's going to love me for sharing this, but he'll snore like when he first goes to sleep. Then it's nice and quiet. But then as he comes out of the REM and starts stirring around 5 a.m., that's when he starts snoring again. So if I'm struggling, then I will do the math. I'll lay there for an hour or so. I'll just start getting to drift off. And then that's the time where he starts snoring. It's just like, ah. So yeah, I think that is such a great tip, is just don't check the time, because then if you don't know, you're not going to get into that cycle of doing the math, are you? So that makes such perfect sense. And that brings us nicely onto the question that I wanted to ask you of, what strategies do you recommend for improving sleep quality and boosting energy?
I think for the number one thing that people often focus on this nighttime routine, right? We all need to bedtime routine. this is what we also read on the internet, and that's fair. Like if we look at, we're moms, if we look at what we do with our little ones when they're smaller, right? We bathe them, we read them a story, we tuck them in. Like there's a reason we do that, even though we might have just kind of inherited that from our parents because we were raised that way. There is a reason why we do these things. We do this to wind down from the day, to calm them down, to make them feel safe and loved, and then they can hopefully drift off to sleep. Yes, there is the odd night where that doesn't work, but generally that's the routine, right? The body knows. It's like, oh, and now it's time to get ready and get to sleep and become tired. And often we don't do that. Like we go to the last minute, right? And then still check all this and that. So yes, if we're not doing that, and we'll get to that in a minute, we're kind of also self-sabotaging. But that hour, what you do before sleep, isn't for a lot of people what makes or breaks their sleep. Your bedtime routine basically starts when you wake up. It starts in the morning. So anything we do throughout the day either pays into your account of, oh, I'm going to be able to sleep tonight, or it doesn't.
Wow.
That includes your evening, but it isn't just that. And the reason for that is, and I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, and it's the first thing I do with all my clients, is I help them reset their what's called their circadian rhythm, their sleep-wake cycle. So we all as humans, animals have this too, but we all as humans go through what's called a sleep-wake cycle. So we're waking up in the morning, our stress hormone cortisol shoots up, gives us energy that goes down throughout the day, and like late afternoon melatonin, our sleepy hormone, comes in. And it peaks overnight, and it's supposed to help us fall asleep. And this is a cycle that roughly repeats every 24 hours. And this cycle, the brain or our body knows when to secrete this cortisol and when to secrete this melatonin based on one factor, and that is light exposure. Our body doesn't have like a proper clock. It's like it doesn't read, oh, it's 5:30 p.m., so let's secrete melatonin. Our body knows, oh, the light in the sky, the sun is actually setting, or in the morning the sun's coming up, and depending on those light cues, because your sunrise and sunset look different than 12 o'clock noon, right? It's different light. That light hitting your eye determines when the hormones are released. So how do we then reset it? So how do we make sure we have a healthy circadian rhythm? We have light exposure at the right times of day. So the first thing I have everybody do is within 30 minutes of waking up, assuming sun is coming up, you go and get 10 minutes of sunlight or daylight. So you go outside on your porch, you walk the dog around the block, you go around the block, if you can't do these things, depending on where you live, open your window all the way and actually look at the sky. Like just have your warm drink, sit there and enjoy the daylight. And that helps your body to notice, oh, I need to shoot out cortisol. And if you do that, you'll notice very quickly, I would say most of my clients within a week, that their energy in the afternoon improves. You don't have these slumps anymore. So no caffeinating in the afternoon, which is great because it messes with your sleep anyhow. Sugar cravings go away. They just have better energy, and it helps them fall asleep often a bit earlier because the body is starting to get to its proper cycle again. And then over time, that can also help with sleeping through. There might be other reasons why people don't sleep through, and we can talk about one or two as the tips. But that is really the big one. Make sure you get natural light in the morning, ideally once or twice during the day. Like even if you pick the kids up from school, you get natural light. If you can walk there, if you can you pull down your window without wearing sunglasses? Because that would block it. Are you on the playground with them? Then you're outside. Great. Like you're already getting that light. And then at night, try and dim your lights at home. A lot of us, and if you're on social media, somebody with ring lights, like I have them too, it's blue light. It's killer for sleep. These super bright lights. So try and finish that like a couple of hours before you want to go to bed. And a lot of people have now these ceiling lights that are integrated into the ceilings. That is literally 12 o'clock noon sunshine. That is the sun rays falling straight down onto your head, because that's the angle, right? It's a 90-degree, like it's perfect noon. If you have those on at night and you're someone who struggles with sleep, like dim them, because your body thinks, it's not melatonin time, it's cortisol, it's go time, because that information of that light just comes. And screens, yes, they're also a problem a bit, right? Like phones, and we all know that get off your phone. Yes, it's partially the blue light, and it's partially the content that we consume.
That all makes so much sense. That's
Right?
just
It's like there's stuff that triggers you sometimes subconsciously. And then what's your body's physiological response to stress? Release cortisol, your stress hormone, and adrenaline. And what does this do? It lowers the effect your melatonin has, because they just work against each other. That's how they're meant to work. But we haven't evolved from cave times. Our bodies are still functioning optimally the way they did back in the day. So having a lot of light during the day and avoiding light at night, making sure your bedroom is cave-like really dark, cooler, quiet, so that there's no distractions, right? That's why the Fitbits and what are they all, Apple Watches, right? And I started wearing a sleep tracker for a while, just because I got one gifted, and one of my clients is using it, and because I don't track normally, because it makes me nervous, like it literally does. And that thing started lighting up, and whenever it was doing it drove me nuts. It's like you wake up in the middle of the night, because everybody does. Some people just don't remember. You turn around and like tuck yourself in, and the thing is like half green. I'm like, and then you just know, and you're just annoyed, and it just kicks in cortisol. I'm like, it's just so counterproductive. Yeah, so I think those are really the big ones for setting your energy and getting that sleep-wake cycle reset. And then one thing, especially with should we talk about one maybe for falling asleep and one for staying asleep?
That would be great. Yeah, absolutely.
So falling asleep often has cortisol, that hormone. You'll find that like when it comes to sleep and you can't sleep, cortisol is always part of the equation. So we have to kind of look at what drives that. And cortisol could be that that is something that often happens in burnout, that our body starts releasing. We get like a second wind at night. It's like you come home from work or you're done your work and you're like, oh my God, I could fall asleep on the couch. I'm exhausted. And then 3 hours later, you're like, okay, let's go. Can I clean the house? Can I quickly write an email? What can I do? That is like, if that's you, please go and reset your circadian rhythm with that light exposure, because that's a sign your cortisol is at night is too high. And that can have lots of different reasons. This could be something like inflammation, could be food sensitivities. You ate something that your body doesn't like and it reacts to it. It can also be stress. And if we have that, then we often we go to bed and the to-do list is in your head. Or we have anxiety when we go to bed. If that's you, there's two things I would definitely do. One is really take time throughout the day to take like 5 minutes, 10 minutes here and there, to just do nothing. And what I mean by that is literally drink a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or whatever you like, get a glass of water, just sit there. You can even do it outside, because then you're already habit stacking that, get that daylight. Just sit there 5 minutes, no scrolling on the phone. If you want to talk to a friend, like a good friend about something, just checking in or something, that's fine. But no scrolling, no emailing, no texting, to just let the brain start digesting what it's been processing throughout the day. Because what I often see, because we're so busy, we go to the last minute, hit the pillow and expect to sleep. Like, that's not going to work. Your brain's going to be like, oh, she's finally quiet. She's finally listening to me. Let's go. Let me say what I have to say. And then come the to-do list, and then come the worries. And I reacted badly to this conversation and to that person, and I should have said this differently. And then all that self-doubting and all that stuff comes in, and then you can't sleep. So take breaks throughout the day. And the other thing I like to do, if you're somebody who has anxiety, have what I would call a worry journal. And it could be something, I like them to be small. Like if you're somebody who journals and has a big journal, I like the word journal to be smaller, just visually. And I would do that end of the day, not too close to bedtime. End of your workday, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 p.m. if you're going to bed by 10, and just write everything down that worries you. Just put it on paper because, and I know we talked about something a bit different, but the idea I think is the same what we talked about on our podcast, my podcast, like get it out, get it on paper because the brain sees it and knows, oh, she's got it. I don't need to hold that little chamber with that information open yet, that little parking spot the entire time. Right? It's that capacity. It's that create that space. And that often helps people who have anxiety to fall asleep over time a lot better. And if you're waking up in the middle of the night, could be different things. Could be anxiety for sure is a thing. And I would do things like word journal or brain dump could be part of that. But it can be something also to track a little. When does this happen? For women, does it happen around ovulation and does it happen around your period? Because then it could be hormonal and it is potentially not as big of a thing, depending on how old you are. If you're getting into your 40s, mid 40s, into perimenopause, maybe something to talk to a practitioner about, potentially how they can support that, because hormones are not just for sleep, but for other things. If you're waking up, and I see this often in women, and they're like, I'm a bit hungry. I could actually go eat something now. I can have a snack. Like, see how often this happens for you and generally assess how well you eat during the day, because often what wakes us up in the middle of the night is low blood sugar. And if our blood sugar drops, guess what goes up? Cortisol, because the body needs energy, because it's like, oh my God, she's dying. Like she needs to eat now. I need to wake her up. And the body breaks down muscle tissue with cortisol to release cortisol and give you energy. And that's all it does. But it will wake you up and it will shoot your cortisol higher than it needs to be. And then that needs to be broken down again. And if you're actually hungry, go and eat, because if you don't, it's going to take so much longer to fall back asleep, because the body is just like, oh, she's still not listening. I'm just going to keep on pumping cortisol. And for the blood sugar, really look at how you're basically what you're doing during the day. Are you waking up, having coffee, not eating breakfast because you're busy running the kids to school, right? Then it's like, oh, I'm quickly going to throw in some protein bar and then I'm going to get to work and then it's lunch and I'm basically maybe you have the kids, like I have my son at home for lunch and then drop him off at school again. Like basically, are you feeding the kids and you're not eating? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you skipping meals? Because all that, and then going for the muffins, the bagels, what we do because we crave energy, right? The sweetened Starbucks, whatever thing. And that's not to blame anybody. That's just your body needs energy at some point. Like and then you're gonna go for something quick. But that sends your blood sugar on a roller coaster during the day. And blood sugar on a roller coaster is a roller coaster overnight. The body doesn't switch and say, oh, now it's nighttime. Now this is smooth sailing. It's not, because it didn't get the nutrition, protein specifically, that it needed throughout the day to keep stable blood sugar overnight. So that's really something that often, once we get that on track, that really often helps with sleep.
Incredible. It's all so fascinating. And I try the best I can to spend some time before going to bed, of winding down, do a bit of reading, try and not, resist that urge to watch, hit go again on another episode of Netflix. But I would never have thought that actually it starts when you get up, but it's so true. And that totally makes sense, that you think, well, it gets dark in the evening. So what's the first thing we do? We put the lights on. But actually, if they're super bright and we're not dimming them down, then that's when we're going to get that kick of, oh, okay, it's time to get going again. And we get another burst of the cortisol. That is just, it's incredible. And watching what we're eating during the day, because I'll admit I'm guilty sometimes of skipping breakfast, that I'm not a breakfast fan. I find it hard to find something that I like. So I will tend to skip, but then I get peckish sort of like 10:30 in the morning. So I'll try and have something that is good that will keep me going until lunchtime. But it is super easy to do that. And I think sometimes you just don't realize that all of those little things during the day actually add up to then not being able to rest and relax and actually get a decent night's sleep at night. So I think it's a really good mindset shift to have, of our bedtime routine doesn't start an hour before we go to bed. It actually starts the second we get up. And I'm definitely going to go and try resetting my circadian rhythm without a doubt, because I know that's something for me. And exactly that I'll get to 5, 6 in the evening, have dinner, sit down. I'm exhausted and I could quite easily go to sleep then. But by 8, 9 o'clock, I start bouncing and jiggering around because I'm ready to go and do something. So it's no wonder then that I'm waking up in the middle of the night. So yeah, that's amazing tips, such great tips. And I love the idea of having that worry journal, because that attaches to with not scrolling in the evening. Subconsciously, it sends those messages of the comparisonitis, they're not being good enough, that they're not doing this, you're not doing that, you're not, if you go onto Instagram and see some reels about work, you're not achieving in your business. And it just plays, doesn't it?
And that's actually, I think, for somebody who doesn't have an Instagram account just for fun, but for work, this is killer. Like, and if you want to scroll at some point in the evening, I think you almost have to have two different phones or two different accounts where you do not follow competitors or anything whatsoever, because you always have your mind on work. You're going to be like, oh, or even if it's like, oh, Mel Robbins just interviewed somebody on this and this, I could be talking about this. This is an interview. Like, you're always on. If you're consuming input as an entrepreneur, I find you're kind of always on relating that to your business. So you have to be, I don't know about you, but I am kind of like that. Oh yeah. And then if it's like competition, or then it's like then it's like, oh my God, now I need to do that. Why has she talked about that? Now I'm talking about that next week on my podcast. Like, it's just, yeah. And it's stupid, but I think that's just the human brain, right? But so it's like, that's not helpful. And if we know that, I think we just have to put those boundaries in place to protect ourselves, because we know we're going to be better off. It's more authentic. We're going to be better off. We're going to be more creative if we just give it a rest and not worry about what the others are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've even had to do the same, as well as not resisting the urge to look at my phone in the evening, because mine is my business Instagram account. So I have to just not look at that. But I also realized as well that I can't read, because I love reading nonfiction over fiction before going to bed. I just generally read nonfiction. But I had to switch the topic of nonfiction that I was reading, because I realized that I was reading at 10 o'clock at night trying to sleep, and I'm reading personal growth books and tips, all of those sort of books. And then I ended up getting, going up and coming downstairs to get post-it notes, because I thought I must remember that. And I was putting it in, and then thinking I need to add that to my notes app on my phone, because that would make a great podcast episode. And it's like, this is not helpful. So I even had to get super aware of that and switch the topic that I was reading. So I think it's just such an important point, isn't it? To get super like aware of what you're doing. So just,
yes. And I often also see women, because you can do all kinds of things to like wind down, and reading, I think, fiction, like something really, another love story, but it's kind of like that stuff is sometimes it's even so boring it's going to put you to sleep. Or it's something you always wanted to read and it's not super like stressful, thrillery kind of thing. That is really helpful. Even something like, if you're somebody who says, I don't like to read and I don't like to bathe because I don't like bathe, because there's people who like that, right? That's cool. Really do something, like you need something to wind down. The body just works that way. But you need to find something that you enjoy, because or that's not like engaging the brain too much, like you were saying with the personal growth books. But also, if I told you you have to bathe and you hate bathing, that's just going to cause stress and you're not relaxing. You have to really look at something that you enjoy, being it reading, being it journaling, being it a podcast list that you listen to, or I don't know if people have heard of yoga nidra. You can get it on YouTube. It's free. There's hundreds of there. And people are like, I don't do yoga. It's actually not yoga. It's a body scanning technique. And it's guided. So you listen to a person and you basically lay or sit there and they just make you be aware of your body. They walk you through your body, and you can do them in 5 minutes or you can do them in 20 minutes. There's a bajillion ones out there. And sometimes just something simple as that helps to reset. And then people are like, but I want to be spending time with my partner. What are you doing at the time? Oh, we're watching television. Well, would you maybe just want to roll out the yoga mat and do some stretches? while you're in the room with them. Like you can still be in there, but just do something that gives your body some way to maybe release excess energy that's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we have that
Awesome.
second wind, right?
Yeah.
Or just to be like, oh, this is my routine now. I know soon we're going to go to bed and then I'm going to just fall asleep.
Brilliant. Don't do that. Or even just, encourage the husband to do it with you as well.
That too, absolutely. And you
Oh,
could even do it like yoga nidra or something. You can even do in bed, like if you had it on your phone or something, and we're not looking at the phone after, but we could have it on there if both people would want to do it for sure.
amazing. So, how can mompreneurs, do you think, balance business and family responsibilities while prioritizing their own sleep and well-being?
Well, I think by actually doing that, you are
Yeah.
supporting your family. I think that's the thing. We have to really figure out two things. One, what is really my circadian rhythm? So what is my best time to actually be asleep and be like, do I go to bed earlier? Is that my thing? And then I'm up earlier. And if that's my thing, can I start mapping out my work week? Like that's something I really like to do that often. Like have a calendar and literally put the time, like put every activity that you do on your calendar. And maybe you do that sometimes with clients too. It's like, oh yeah, from whatever, 7 to 8:30, I'm busy because I need to get the kids ready and I need to make lunches. Unless you could do that the night before, but like that's what I'm getting the kids to school. Then I have 45 minutes of maybe that's what I do. I clean. Like I get the house organized because it stresses me if there's clutter everywhere. So then I do that quickly. And then I know from whatever 10 to 12, I have to work with clients. Then from 12 to 1 is lunch. And if you actually map these things out, and they could look different every day, right? Like I have certain days where I work with clients and I have certain days where I don't, where I just do content.
Mm-hmm.
Like those buckets because I have my mind focused on certain things then. And I know I don't need to stress out about it at night because I know, oh, Monday is content day. So that's fine. I don't need to worry that it's Thursday and I haven't written the post yet. That's coming on Monday. I think really looking at your time, looking at how you can fit things in so you don't need to stress about them so that you don't pull these all-nighters or like late into the night with your business because that messes with your sleep. Make sure you nourish yourself, like really put that in there. And then one thing that I think is often a big one, look at, and I did this activity just a few months ago because I was always feeling behind. I was like, I don't know my to-do list. Like this is just insane. It's not even that long, but it's just not working. For some reason, it's not working out. Am I stupid? Am I slow? Like what the heck is going on? People are always like, you have to outsource. You need like another person. I'm like, I don't even think like this is wrong. I don't know. Something's weird. And I did this. I scheduled everything on the calendar, everything, like family, everything. And then I noticed how, in comparison, little time I actually have for my business right now, because it's just a phase in life where my son needs us more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm literally scheduling a 40-hour work week into a 20-hour calendar. Like, this is not working. It just isn't. And that exercise was so enlightening because then I could say, okay, what are the things that I'm just not like in my business, I'm not doing? And I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to make the conscious decision that this needs to be postponed because I see it black on white. It's not working. And then conversations, and I know they can be harder, conversations about boundaries and conversations about help. And to be honest, I'm better with boundaries than with asking for help. Like, I'm like, I can say, no, I'm not doing that and be okay with it. But like actually asking somebody can you support me with that? That's harder for me. And I'm working in progress on that one. But if you do these things, they are part of your bedtime routine, like starts in the morning, actually, because they take so much pressure off eventually. Like, yes, a difficult conversation about boundaries might cause you a sleepless night. That's okay. But once it's done, it's going to improve. And I think the asking for help, really looking at, do you have people in your network you can reach out to? are there already people there? People are, I find now that I do it more, people are actually willing to. They're actually, because it gives them something positive too. Most people want to give and help. And I've also been very much diligent with, and I do that with my clients too, things like what brings you joy, like the one thing, like what lights you up in your business, but also, do you play?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, Mom, I'm like, yeah, with my kids. No, no. What is fun for you? What at the end of the day puts a smile on your face that even if it was 5 minutes, it's like, oh, this was great today. Like, even if, or it was, I went for coffee with a friend, or I finally caught up with this person, or I just sat on the park bench and watched the birds in the sun, whatever it was, right? The thing that brings you joy. And then in your business, yeah, the stuff that you dread, and my list is long, I can tell you that. And am I willing to outsource all of that? No. So I have to find a balance of what are the things that need to be done that I can handle, and what are the things that I'm absolutely not doing anymore. Just because those are the things I find also that burn me out, because they during the day already zap all of my energy.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm dreading them. They get moved in my Asana schedule, like one day to the next day to the next day to the next day. It's like, we haven't done them for 3 weeks. Do we need to do them at all? Like, actually, do they need to get done? And if, can I sit down tomorrow, do them or not? I think those like boundaries, looking at what you enjoy and seeing if you're completely overscheduling yourself is so important.
Amazing. It's so, so true, and such great tips. And just being aware of how you're spending your day and where and just being honest about, we can look and think in our heads we've got all of this time, but actually when you put it on paper and map it, you do realize that you have a lot less time. And once you do that, you can give yourself that permission, and then you're not beating yourself up that you're not accomplishing all these things that you think you should be doing, because actually in reality you don't have the time.
Yeah.
Amazing. So this has been great. Thank you so much. So many fantastic tips. And, number one, tonight I will not be wearing my watch when I go to bed. And I'm going to start tomorrow morning and sort my circadian rhythm out. So thank you. And anybody else struggling, go do the same. I think just those two tips alone are just going to be such game changers for anybody. So as we wrap up, is there any like one final message, one final tip, anything that you would like to add?
Yes, I think the one thing is, don't struggle too long. And this is not me pushing my services. This is just what I see with clients. If you have a stressful time in life, yes, your sleep likely suffers. That's just how life is. Once that stressor goes away, over a couple of months, your sleep should balance out. If that doesn't happen for a while, go talk to somebody, go talk to your doctor, go talk to a practitioner, because we can always reverse things. Like, I work with people who haven't slept in 35 years.
Wow.
And we're reversing things. But it takes longer because your brain needs retraining. And B, the quality of life that you've missed from that is just, for me, it's not worth it. Like, my half year, 1 year was already a time where I'm like, yeah, I wish I knew. So really, like, look at yourself and don't be afraid to ask. Like, it's not a badge of honor to not sleep, right? That whole hustle culture thing is starting to fade, which I think is a good thing. And just because everybody says they're exhausted doesn't mean that that's normal and that we should be living like that, right? And we have lots on our plates. We have lots to juggle. So really setting yourself up for success in any way you can, like healthily, because you want to do this for a long time and you want to be healthy and there for your family for a long time. I think that's where like your health comes, in my view, before everybody else. And we just need to be a little more brave, maybe sometimes, and worthy feeling to make that the priority.
I love it. That is such a great way to end it on. Definitely just don't struggle for too long, and don't be afraid of going and asking for help to get back on top with it. Brilliant. Thank you so much. I always have one last question that I like to ask all of my guests on the show, and that is, what does being an unapologetic mompreneur mean to you? And how are you showing up unapologetically every day, both as a mum and as the boss of your business?
Yeah, I think that's a tricky one. I think, well, I think I've actually maybe mentioned a few things. I think unapologetic is really learning, and I'm still doing that, learning to put myself first, learning to see that success is not tied to a bank account. That success is really the steps that I'm making in personal growth, that I'm getting better, that I'm a mompreneur, that I have those two, but I'm also a person. Right? And unapologetic, really figuring out where my boundaries are and then living up to that standard that I'm setting myself. And that, to me, is the success and the being unapologetic.
Love it. That's just brilliant. Such a great way to close on it. Fantastic. So if you want to find out more about you, how they can work with you, if they want to get their circadian rhythm sorted, get themselves back on track, where can they reach out and find you? And I know that you've got a freebie as well, which we'll make sure the link for is in the show notes. But if you want to just give us a little intro about that and just, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me either on sleeplikeaboss.com. That's the website. Facebook is the same, and Instagram is my name. It's @_Annika Carroll. I'm not super active on social media. I'm more active on my podcast, the Sleep Like a Boss podcast, and on YouTube with that. And if you want to just get a few more tips on what we talked about and find out how well you are doing in terms of, are you putting enough into your bank account to be able to sleep? The freebie that I have is called the Game of Sleep, and it does give you scoring, so you can score yourself on how good you are right now with what you're doing, and tips on how you can improve just to get yourself back on track.
Perfect. That sounds amazing. We will make sure that all of those links and the links to your podcast and everything is in the show notes as well. Thank you so much, Annika. This has been such a great episode, and I really appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we will catch you in the next episode. Thanks, everybody, and bye for now. Thank you so much for joining me for another installment of the Unapologetic Mompreneur podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I would love for you to leave me a rating and a review so that other mompreneurs can find this podcast too. Here's to unapologetically becoming the mum, wife, biz owner, and woman you know you are meant and deserve to be. I can't wait to chat with you in the next episode. Bye for now.